Good evening and welcome to Club Finances, a Lions University course brought to you by the USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum. Before we begin, I would like to remind you that this webinar is being recorded for those who cannot participate with us live, or if you would like to review the material on the video at a later time. My name is Lion Wendy Kane, and I will be helping to facilitate our course this evening, and I've got a few items of news to share with you before we begin. There are a couple ways that you will be able to engage on this particular webinar. We have a couple of polls where we're going to ask for your input, and you'll be able to answer to poll questions, and we will review those results. If you have any questions, you can type your question in the questions pane, and we will either reply to you directly, or if it's a question that we need to bring for the benefit of all of our participants, we will do that as the appropriate time comes throughout the course. And we've got a lot of material to cover, so we'll try to leave time at the end where we can pick up other questions or comments that you might have. As a reminder about the bachelor's program of Lions University, in particular our course tonight, number 123, is an elective for the bachelor's program. The bachelor's program is designed to help Lions lead at the club level, and it involves completing all 10 of the required courses in the left column and at least 5 elective courses from the right column. As many of you now know, lionsuniversity.org has gotten a facelift. The easiest way to track the courses that are available for you to take or are upcoming is to go to, in the case of the bachelor's program, look for the bachelor's in the menu bar, and you can see now we have a list of courses that are available for you to take, courses that are scheduled, and as our other courses get scheduled, they will be noted here accordingly. We have a similar course listing for the master's program, and as the doctorate program is being developed, we will add those as well. I think we did have a access issue that is being corrected, in that you should be able to see for the courses that are either scheduled or not yet available. You should be able to access the description of those and be able to register for the GoToWebinar without having to log into your account. So we've got a couple of settings to fix there to make sure that all the courses will allow you to do that for the ones that are yet to be offered. Once the course recordings are made available, then we want you to be able to log into the system to go through the course. So in particular on each course page now, well, one clarification: many of you have replied or sent inquiries because you've had difficult accessing the website. lionsuniversity.org does use a different username and password than what the members area of lionsforum.org utilizes. Now you can choose to register and use the same username and password, but it doesn't automatically link. Those two websites are not directly connected. So you will need, if you don't already, to have a unique or new username and password for the Lions University website. The benefit now is that you'll be able to track your course completions and take the quizzes within here and not have to go to a different website and enter new contact information, emails, and things like that. So what you would do after you either complete the webinar, or if you watch a video at a later date, you'll be able to go in and mark your course as completed. Just press the button, and then that will advance to the next unit, which will be the quiz that you can take. In order to track your progress, and this is a snapshot of my progress, you can go to the sub-menu item that says my bachelor's program status, or the corresponding one for my master's program status, and the bright green bars are the ones that show that you are complete, and you can see what courses are open and which ones have been complete. The key here, and the thing that will help us better serve you that will better help us serve you and many other Lions, is we've reduced the manual aspect of the reporting progress. So the key areas that our administrative team will be handling is the final steps of receiving credit for completing one of the 3 programs, the bachelor's, master's, or doctorate program. So once you have taken all 10 of the required courses, you can click the link here that says 10 required bachelor's courses complete, and there's a little one form to fill in that says, where you can just make a note that says all 10 have been completed. We will go in, verify that completion, and then note your progress. Again, similarly, when you've completed at least 5 bachelor courses that are electives, we'll be able to, you can complete the quiz, note which course numbers are on there, and then we will verify and give you the credit that will help us track who will recognize as having completed each program in the future. Finally, just as a reminder, some of you have filled out the quiz about attending the USA-Canada Lions Leadership Forum, and for the purpose of Lions University, the credit for that particular activity begins with the 2014 forum. So many of you who have attended forums in the past, unfortunately for the purpose of Lions University, we started the program when it was rolled out at the San Juan Forum in 2014, and so that forum and anyone forward will count for credit. All right, let's jump into our material for today. It is my pleasure to welcome and introduce to you Past District Governor Gary Steele from Multiple District 31 in my neighboring state of North Carolina. Lion Gary has had a lot of treasurer experience, and so there's a lot of insight and information that he has pulled together to share with us about club finances. And so with that, I am going to ask Gary to get us started.
Well, thank you, Wendy. It's my pleasure to be with everybody tonight. Like she said, there's going to be a lot of information in this course, so I'm going to try not to go too fast, and I hope I haven't scared you with that picture that's on the screen right now. So, Wendy, if we can go to the next slide, and I see some questions about your sound from Bud.
Okay, I will. Well, I'm going to be muting now, so but I would just ask if you have any difficulties hearing Gary, if you'll just make a note in there, and we will, or if anyone else has sound difficulties, if you will make a note in the questions pane, and we will see about taking care of that.
Okay, during this course we're going to have 4 objectives. The first objective is to learn the responsibilities of the club treasurer and board of directors, learn how funds can be used and raised, learn what reports to file, and learn how club finances impact the success of your club and its members. Let's start off with the treasurer's responsibilities. The treasurer's responsibilities are to maintain accurate club financial records and checking accounts, ensure all payments are approved by the board of directors and recorded in the board meeting minutes, and report reconciled bank balances at all board meetings with brief income and expense statements. These statements don't have to be long for these meetings, as long as you're getting the information out that needs to be put out. During your club meetings, you want to keep the members informed. You want to be prepared to present financial information at club meetings. Make sure it is concise, factual, and to the point. You want to be prepared to collect money and issue receipts. And you want to receive and deposit money in approved bank accounts. As the treasurer, you will be responsible for 2 different budgets. You'll be responsible for an administrative and an activities budget. Under the administrative budget, you will have to determine periodic collection of dues, if you're going to collect them on a monthly basis, a quarterly basis, or however you deem is necessary to do that. You want to determine the dues needed to cover district, multiple district, and international dues, and other expenses such as meals, postage, and awards. In your activities budget, You need to anticipate the income and expenses for all of your planned activities for the year. These will be all of your projects that you're going to use to raise money to accomplish the things that you're going to do in your communities. You want to complete your budget no later than May of the coming year for the following year, because the budget that you complete in May will be approved and used for the 1st of July going into the new year. You also, as the treasurer, recommend a bank where the funds are to be maintained, and the board must approve where these funds are going to be maintained. Alliance International recommends that you have separate accounts for administrative and activities accounts, and I understand as small clubs, my club being one of them, sometimes it's pretty difficult because in today's world, not receiving much interest, you're ending up paying a lot for checking accounts and on two separate accounts, so it's tough to do that. So what you have to do if you can't afford to do that with your one account is make sure that you keep accurate records so you're only spending admin money and activities money in the appropriate spaces. You want to ensure that the bank has signature cards on file for authorized signees and for their backups. If you have an assistant treasurer, you want them to be able to. If your president is also a signature or a signee on the account, they've got to be on that signature card. Also, as the treasurer, you want to recommend the limits for the amount of petty cash that's allowed. Most of the time, you want to keep petty cash down to a very minimum, and a lot of clubs don't even allow petty cash. But if you have a fundraiser that you do, you might want to have petty cash available so that you can make change and things like that. It's easier than going to the bank every time and then having to go back and forth. You want to establish a system for reimbursement. All reimbursements should have a receipt, some kind of written receipt, preferably from the store or from the establishment that the items were purchased from. You want to use checks and request checks whenever possible. Cash exchanges are very hard to keep straight. They can cause confusion and create potential unclear accounting later on down the road. You want to deposit the money from any fundraiser or any meeting. You want to deposit that in the predetermined accounts the next business day or within 48 hours. The next thing that you want to do is give bond for faithful discharge of your position. What I recommend in this is a lot of times it costs you money to bond your treasurer and your officers. So you might talk to your district, because a lot of times your district and or your state already bonds, so it might be easier for you just to piggyback on with them, and it'll cost you a lot less money to do that. So that would be the simplest and most economical way to do that. You also have to pay your LCI bills, and you'll see on the screen the two possible ways to do that. It's becoming increasingly popular for clubs and districts to go online and pay their bills if they have a credit card, or maybe they even have gone on and done a direct from their checking accounts to pay those bills. If you're like me and you still want to mail them in, the address is here, and make sure you use this address. You don't want to mail it to LCI, because if you mail it there, it may not get to where you want it to go. Your dues have to go to this account that you see on the screen. Now that we've gotten a lot of that out of the way, let's talk a little bit more about the end of the year. At the end of the year, you want to have your records audited, and that's at the end of the fiscal year, not at the end of the calendar year. So after the 30th of June, you want to have someone audit. You don't have to go out and pay someone to do this. You can have somebody else in your club do it that has nothing to do with the finances, or maybe ask somebody from another club to come in and do it. But an audit is a good thing, because it just keeps everybody okay with what you've done. You want to file the appropriate tax return after the end of the year, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So if you have questions on what tax returns to file, we're going to talk about that later on in the course. The treasurer term excuse me, is only for 1 year. If some of you have been as blessed or as needed as I have, you may have been doing this for more than 1 year. I think I've done it for about 7 years now. But you want to try as much as possible to have a treasurer term for 1 year, because by turning the records over, it prevents people from getting lazy and not doing everything they're supposed to do and keep the records straight. You want to transfer financial records to the new treasurer after the end of the year. And in this transfer, you want to make sure that the new treasurer gets the budgets, the bank statements, the audit reports, the tax returns, and the check registers. And on the next slide, you will also see that bank statements, audit reports, and tax returns should be kept for a minimum of 7 years. That is just basically a guideline from the IRS. Financial statements and things like that should be kept for that. Other records, it's kind of up to you, but those reports and those particular items are supposed to be kept for that period of time. That pretty much tells us what the treasurer is supposed to do, but there's another group in your Lions Club that is really held more responsible for club finances, and that's your board of directors. Serving as a board member is not an honorary title. There are specific legal duties owed to the organization. There also can be severe consequences for breach of fiduciary duty. Board members can be held individually responsible for not living up to the standards. So just being a board member is not necessarily just a job that you throw somebody in because they don't have anything else to do. There's a lot of responsibility for those board members. Board members generally have 4 duties. The duty of care, and the duty of care means that they understand the organization's mission, constitution, and bylaws. They attend the meetings, read the minutes, and study the financial reports. They also have a duty of loyalty. They have to ensure that the interest of the organization is always first, avoid transactions involving potential conflicts of interest. They also have the duty to manage accounts, keep accurate records of income, expenditures, and transactions, develop annual budgets that provide clear directions for spending, and establish appropriate internal accounting systems. So in other words, the board and the treasurer have to work together to make all those things happen. They don't personally have to sit down and write that budget out, but they have to work with the treasurer to get that done. And then finally, the duty of compliance. Follow provisions of the organization's governing documents, whether you're a 501c4, which most Lions clubs are, or if your club took on a 501c3 at some point and paid to have that listing, they have to follow the guidelines for that. They have to also comply with federal, state, provincial, and local reporting requirements. Now let's talk some about financial policies. If we could go to the next slide, please. The following statement is the primary rule for all Lions Club financial policies. Under no circumstances may the net income of club projects or activities raised from the public be used in any manner whatsoever for administrative purposes. Basically what this is saying is that the money that we raise from the public we can't use to go out and buy something for the club. It has to be used for our projects that assist and take care of those that we are bound to take care of. We can't renovate our club with that money. If we're going to do that, that has to come from our Lions. Lions clubs must establish and maintain 2 separate funds, the administrative fund and the activities fund. The administrative fund is once again used for internal running of the club, and the activities fund is used to fulfill the exempt purposes and goals of the club. Your administrative fund pays for a lot of things, and where these administrative funds come from is from members' dues, tail twisting fines, other money raised directly from club members, if you have like maybe an auction at your club that is primarily from club members. Excuse me. And the expenses of this fund will be for per capita tax, printing, postage, and other costs relating to running the club meetings. The activities fund will be useful to fulfill the exempt purposes and goals of the club. The income of this fund will be from public fundraising projects. Now, this is the activities. The expenses will be the direct cost of the fundraising projects as well as the donations and charitable activities of the club. Now, this time, we're going to try a poll here, and you're going to see some choices, and in these choices, I want you to try to decide which fund these choices should be assigned to.
So the first question is to check all of the items that apply for being administrative items. And Gary, we've been able to hear all of your words, but there have been a few little like staticky or blended segments. If you have any other programs on your computer that you might be able to close while we're waiting for results to come through, that may help, or at least we can give it a try.
Okay, I don't have anything else on, I don't think.
Okay. We'll wait a few more moments. We've got about 70% of you have voted. Anyone else need to press the submit button, and then we'll... All right, let's close the poll and share the results.
Okay, let's see here. Administrative, you have your membership dues. We have 100% saying that membership dues is correct. Electric bills, of course, is correct. And Leo Club sponsorship fee. And from what I've been able to, of course, I'm not a legal specialist, but from what I've been able to find out from checking into the Leo Club, realistically, a Leo Club sponsorship, which is done each year, is one of your projects of the club. So you could, in fact, administrative is probably a pretty good place to go if you've got the money, but you could, in fact, take money from your activities just for that sponsorship because it's a one-time fee each year.
Did you want to talk about the Leo? Oh, that it could be either direction. Sorry about the cut and paste area.
Correct.
We had Leo Club sponsorship fee on there twice, but we got different results for that. So
yeah, I saw that.
Everybody agreed on the membership dues and agreed on monies collected at the pancake breakfast. So okay, let's take a look at the next one, and that will be asking which items are activities. We have about 70% of the vote in. We'll wait another moment. All right, 10 more seconds. All right, let's see the results here.
Okay, looks like we have 74% say donations to LCIF are activities, and that is in fact correct because it meets the test of humanitarian service work, which is what we say we're collecting money for. The other three, actually monies received for rental on a building based on information I've received from legal, monies that you receive for renting your building can go into your admin account because it is not a fundraiser that you're doing. Property insurance on Lions Clubs, you have to be really careful on doing that because your activities are not there to help you maintain your building, and property insurance and replacement of a heating system don't fall under what that money is supposed to be raised for. That money would supposedly have to come out of your admin account, which is why it's important for the club members to be to buy in to taking care of the building and things like that. So you have to be really careful. So if you're renting your building, of course, you can use that for property insurance or replacement of your heating system.
Lion Gary, two comments or notes that came in on the questions pane. One is a clarification that some of our clubs call their activities account their charitable account. So you may hear either of those in your club operations. And Lion Judy had a question and asked, can a donation be given from the administrative fund to the activities fund by a vote of the board of directors for a specific activity?
Yes, it may. Your admin fund, which is money from your Lions and from things that your Lions do together, can be put into your activities funds at any time. My club does that every year. That's how we, even though we do end-of-year awards, and our awards are like Melvin Jones and things like that, which in fact do fall under what activities money could be bought from or used for, we actually use admin money to do that because we don't really raise enough money outside of the other things that we do for those. So yes, you can't move it from your activities to your admin, but you can move it from your admin to your activities. Okay, are we ready to go on, Wendy? Next slide, please.
Should be good accounting practices.
Okay.
Should be coming up.
Good accounting practices. Good accounting practices. These are just a list of some of the accounting practices that you want to try to adhere to. All monies must be deposited. You don't want to hold monies out. Payment and disbursement for any purpose should not be made from cash received by the club, but by check drawn on one of the club's accounts. All disbursements are done only on the authority of the board of directors. Receipts need to be itemized. Financial reports, bank statements, tax returns retained. Government filings should be retained. The treasurer should be bonded. Audits should be performed annually. The club may not create any indebtedness beyond the current fiscal year. In other words, if your club decides that you want to add on to your building and you don't have the money to do it, you're not allowed to go out and borrow that money and create a 5-10 year bond or something for your club, because that's not allowable under LCI. Clubs can carry over funds, however, they should be kept to a minimum. And although carrying over substantial amounts can threaten the loss of one's exempt status. In other words, if you're carrying over $5,000, it's probably not a big deal. But if you've got an account that's got $50,000 or $100,000 in it and you're carrying that over from year to year, that doesn't really fall under the type of organization we're supposed to be. My club usually spends all of the activity or the the activity money every year. We might carry over $100 if that, but our admin account we may carry over $7,000 or $8,000 each year because that's money that we've raised from our members and from our dues and things. Then let's talk about due diligence. Due diligence is the conduct that a reasonable person will exercise to look out for the well-being of the organization. An organization can accumulate and pass funds from one fiscal year to another, although carrying substantial amounts. Excuse me, I'm off on my notes here. Board members need to ensure that donations and distributions are appropriate. Set limits. Steps to limit exposure include require dual signatures, reconcile bank statements, limit use of cash, establish check handling procedures, establish expense reimbursement policies, set and follow budgets, encourage rotation of duties or term limits, and consider insurance coverage. So due diligence is something you want to do to make sure that your club is following all the guidelines, and it's just basically common sense. Tax exempt status. All clubs chartered under Lions Club International in the United States and Canada are exempt from their respective federal income taxes. In the United States, this exemption is under the IRS Code Section 501c4, which is how we're categorized as an organization. This section of the code deals with civic leagues and social welfare organizations. Lions Clubs International has not been granted status under Section 501c3, which is for charitable organizations. In Canada, Lions Clubs are considered nonprofit organizations and not charities. Therefore, for all federal purposes, Lions Clubs are not considered charities, and donations to Lions Clubs or projects are not deductible as charitable contributions. It is proper to refer to a Lions Club as a tax-exempt or as a not-for-profit organization. However, it would be improper to refer to a Lions Club as a charity. Be careful not to mislead the public by printing the word donation on admission or raffle tickets. The IRS views this as a violation of your disclosure regulations when no deductibility is actually warranted. So you've got to be careful and not use charity and donations, because we're really not that. We are tax exempt and we are not for profit. You can't give a letter to a person or an organization so that they can get something for their donation. Now that we've talked about that, let's talk about jeopardizing your exempt status. Private benefit or endearment, which is engaging in any activity which permits the organization's income or assets to unduly benefit a person who has some close relationship to the organization. In other words, you can't give to someone who is a member of your organization. And a lot of clubs really struggle with this. My club is one. You can't donate money to one of your members to help them out. Employment issues, including compensating volunteers with gift cards or waiving of membership dues, is just one of the things you can't do. Reimbursing members only with proper receipts can be done. Political campaign activity, you want to stay away from that. You want to stay away from endorsing candidates or issues. You can be nonpartisan and encourage your members to get out and vote. Under noncompliance with filing requirements, this is where we're going to start talking a little bit about the IRS and where we fall and what we have to do there. But just as a part of noncompliance, if your club has not filed a tax return, and there are 3 different types which we're going to talk about on the next page in just a minute, and you haven't done it for 3 consecutive years, you can lose your tax exempt status. It is something you do not want to do because it is a major issue to get that tax exempt status back. Once you lose it and you have to go back and get it, you have to You have to show all these records. You may have to pay fines. You may have to pay taxes on stuff when you weren't filing like you were supposed to. So if we'll go to the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit about the types of reports that you may have to file. There are 3 categories in the United States where you have to file taxes. All Lions clubs are required to file taxes. If your income, total income between activities and your activities accounts is less than $50,000, you can file Form 990N, which is the postcard. Basically, you go online and you fill it out and you send it off and you're taken care of. If you make $50,000 to $200,000 in those accounts, then you have to file the Form 990EZ. If you have $200,000 or more, then you have to file Form 990. Now, there is one exception to this rule, that you have to file the Form 990EZ or the 990 if your club owns property. If you have a club that you own, in other words, if you're not renting a place or if you're not meeting at a restaurant, if you own property, then you must file either the 990EZ or the 990. We're not going to talk about individual state taxes and sales tax and stuff like that, because every state's a little bit different on what you have to have and what you have to do, so I'm not going to go into that. I did miss the Canadian requirements. Currently, all nonprofit organizations are exempt in Canada. Now, I do understand that that may be changing, that they're looking at that now, but as of the time that I put this together, they were still exempt.
Lion Gary,
now let's talk a little bit about this. Yes.
There was just a question. Lion Jeff had asked for the definition of property. While that's still on your, while it's still focused with your point about the filing.
Okay. I think, if I remember right, you can go to the IRS website and look it up, but I think we're talking about like land or a building, possibly even a car if a club owned a vehicle or something like that. I don't think they're talking about things like furniture and stuff like that. I don't remember seeing that as part of of what they talked about, but they're definitely talking about buildings, probably vehicles if a club had vehicles. I know clubs that have vehicles because they put up, they rent tents and stuff to different organizations. Because the tents and the truck that they have, they would have to do the 990EZ because they in fact do have tangible property.
Thank you. We have a couple of other questions that folks have put in the questions pane that I will read down through when we get to the end, and we'll answer as many of those as we have time for, or as time that it takes. If that's all right, we'll just do that all at the end.
Okay. Okay, let's go on to incorporation, and this is one that is kind of new to me. Well, tax. You have to be really careful with your sales tax. Most states do not allow you have to pay sales tax on things that you do. If you're charging for a fundraiser that you do, in other words, if you say to eat breakfast it's going to cost you $5, you may have to, in fact, pay sales tax on that. If you don't charge a price, like our club doesn't charge a price, it's whatever people want to give, then that falls under a little bit of a different category. I'm sorry, Wendy, did I get off? Let's back up to incorporation.
I was going to catch you after you got to the end of your section, so yep, back to incorporation.
Okay. It is recommended that Lions clubs incorporate to protect its members from liability. If your club must file an initial articles of incorporation, you must contact the legal department at Lions Clubs International for their approval before you file with your state. The reason for incorporation is basically to protect yourself. If you're not in incorporation, if your club's not incorporated, someone from the outside could sue your club, and everybody in that club, to include the club itself, could be liable under that suit. So that's why it is recommended. I don't have any idea what the price is going to be, but there are some organizations around that will assist you with free information on how to incorporate and what you have to do and what your prices may be. So you would need to check with each state because it's a little bit different in each state. Okay, now let's go on to sales tax, please. In dealing with sales tax, you have to pay sales tax on taxable items purchased for your own use, and you have to collect and submit sales tax from the public when selling taxable items. Like if you do broom sales and you're selling brooms to the public, you either have to collect the tax from the public, or part of what you're collecting has to cover your tax, because anytime you're setting a specific price for your fundraisers, you then may have to in your state, and you would need to check with each state to find out if they in fact do charge sales tax to your organization, because each state can be different. Gaming, bingo, and raffles. All gaming activities include bingo and raffles are usually covered by regulations from the State Attorney General's office, so check your state regulations. But in most cases, only 501c3 charities may conduct games of chance. If the organization is a 501c4, then 100% of the profit derived from bingo must be donated to a 501c3 charity. So basically what that is saying is that if you are having a fundraiser that is a bingo party, then everything you make on that as a 501c4 would have to be donated to a 501c3 to in fact keep you out of trouble. So just be aware of that. Once again, if you have questions on this, Lions International has terrific information on what you can and can't do in these situations, and your state would be a good one. Liability insurance. Lions Clubs International provides a $2 million general liability policy for all individual club Lions. And it used to be, I believe, that you had to call International and to get the certificate of insurance to cover yourself, but it's all done online now. All you've got to do is go out online and you can print the certificate out so that you have it. It's a good thing to have that, because if something were to happen where that is a necessary thing, then it's there. LCI does not provide accident insurance. This liability policy is not an accident insurance. So if you need something to cover, maybe you're doing a car rally or something like that, you're going to have to go somewhere else or go to LCI and get a supplemental policy that would cover that. And you may be able to get it in your state cheaper than through LCI. If you undertake a joint project with another club or with another organization, the co-sponsor is not protected, such as local fairs and community events. So you have to be careful in telling someone that you're going to partner with that they'll be covered under your insurance costs. It may not necessarily be true. LCI does not cover property damage, so be careful with that. Supplemental insurance is available through LCI. LCI insurance does not cover medical payments to persons injured in athletic events such as flag football games. Liabilities arising from the sale or distribution of alcoholic events such as concession stands or sporting events is not covered. Liabilities arising from automobile operation such as poker runs and car rallies is not covered. So if you're doing some of these things, you need to look at your supplemental coverage and or go out to some of your state insurance organizations and see about getting coverage through that to protect yourself. Trademark protection. You must, as a matter of legal protection, make sure that you're not misusing the trademark from Lions International. This includes the association's name and emblem and variations thereof they are registered trademarks. To protect these trademarks, the association has established the following rules of policy. No item bearing the association's trademarks may be sold or distributed without express written permission of the association. Lions clubs have permission and license to use the association's name, emblem, and other trademarks printed on stationery, postcards, bulletins, and other printed material reasonably necessary for its operation. Permission is not granted for the club to print the association's trademarks on items that are available through the club supplies and distribution system. So in other words, if club supplies has an item, you can't go out and duplicate that item. Well, it looks like we've done very well, Wendy. I was afraid we weren't going to get to it. Let's talk about Board of Director responsibilities. Board of Directors is responsible for authorizing payments to be made by the treasurer. Now, I put this in because a lot of times when you're thinking about an authorization for everything the treasurer has to write a check for, that can be very time consuming, and you're going to have to meet twice a month or something like that. But if you see here, approval of recurring payments can be made at the beginning of the year. But you must do that in the board meeting, and you must make sure that that approval is in the board minutes. If there are things that you do every year, in other words, you're paying your district dues, you're paying your international dues, you're paying things that are reoccurring that you, like your heating bill and your gas bill and things like that that are reoccurring, and you have those things in the budget, you can approve those things at the beginning of the year. Now, you can't give a blanket coverage for the treasurer just to write all the checks. Anything outside of the budget or outside of the norm that is not recurring needs to be approved before that check is written. Board of Directors also approves the annual budget and sets the club member dues. In other words, the board's the body that decides how much the dues are going to be for that year. So you need to have a meeting where that's going to take place. Once again, the board approves the banking institution. And look around. Some banks or credit unions, if you get lucky enough that you can get into a credit unions can be a lot more economical for you, and you may even be able to get more interest out of your accounts through a credit union. Our club is lucky, and we have the opportunity to do that. You want to set petty cash limits, ensuring that you're not keeping a lot of cash lying around. Our club keeps $100 in petty cash, and we use that primarily for our fundraisers when we bring that box to our fundraiser. That way, if we need to make change and we haven't taken in enough change at that point, we can do that. So you want to keep your petty cash down, though, because any cash laying around is cash that's hard to account for. Well, that brings us back to our 4 goals for this.
Not quite yet. You have one more.
We want to have a strong financial, I'm sorry, this is our last goal. By having a strong financial plan, your club can be successful and its members successful. You need to ensure that you will have adequate funds to meet your goals and requirements for the year. It prevents misappropriation of funds. It prevents governmental fines and fees from misuse of funds. It ensures that resources are used properly and effectively. And that brings us back to our objectives, and we will take what questions you have, Wendy.
Okay. One thing, let's see, Lion Tim, who is in Canada, provided a clarification or comment that Canada right now is unable to obtain charitable status no matter what, but they are allowed to partner with charities, but however the money must then pass through that hosting charity. So thank you, Lion Tim, for that clarification. Lion Dawn had a question, and this goes to your comment about not wanting to mislead others in calling ourselves a charity. And is it okay to use the term that our funds benefit Lions charities? Is that phrase reasonable, or just any thoughts on that?
If you're going to do that, you need to be very specific and say Lions charities. It's probably better. Our club, when we have fundraisers, we state that the donations that we receive are used for humanitarian work, and that takes us out of the charity and all of that category. We found that that's an easier way to handle it. If you're saying Lions charities, make sure that you're very clear with that so that you're not misleading anybody.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great point, because I think if you're passing through and using those funds to make a donation to another charity that the Lions support, then you'd be all right. But if you used it to buy a pair of eyeglasses or an eye exam, then probably not. Okay. Let's see. Lion Lisa asked a question, and this goes to the personal benefit of Lions. Is it an issue to use a caterer or a restaurant that is owned by a Lions Club member in your club?
Actually, no, it is not. As long as they're not benefiting outside of, in other words, if you're paying what the catering fee is and they're not getting any benefit outside of that, you wouldn't want to, give them an extra $100 because they've been so good to you because of the fact that they're associated with the Lions Club.
So if it's in the course of doing business.
We've had members of our club at time that actually, correct. We've actually had members of our club that have prepared our meals. We have our own clubhouse, and we actually paid them to prepare the meals, but we pay them a set fee, and then we reimburse them on top of that for the expenses of the food that they had to buy. And that is fine that you do that.
Okay. There was a subsequent comment that came in that could potentially be a conflict of interest. Again, I think how that depends on what they quote you versus what they would quote an independent group, but that you could vet that by having multiple quotes from folks. So let's see. Lion Dawn asked, and this goes to the IRS filing requirements, where you gave the financial thresholds. Is that total for both accounts, or is that per each administrative and activities account?
That is a total of both accounts. That is all the money that comes in for the year.
Okay, thank you.
In both accounts, so it's a combined total.
Lion Tim asked, can Lions hold securities such as stocks, bonds, and investments?
I don't have an answer to that. That would be a legal department issue probably. I would say you have to be very careful because when they prohibit you from taking out long-term loans and stuff like that, I would wonder if the securities and stuff wouldn't be kind of the same issue.
Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna make a note of that one, and we'll see if we can get further information. Maybe add it to the discussion board. Lion Roke asked what the process is to reinstate if you lose your non-exempt status, if you don't do that filing within the 3-year window. If you could describe the process to get reinstated.
If I don't have that information here, I didn't expect to have time to go through all of that, but I understand that when you get into that they're going to want to see all of your records for the past several years, and they can go back 7 years. So that's why you don't want to get into that. They look at everything. They may want to see minutes to make sure that the checks that you wrote were authorized. They may want to see receipts to make sure that you're not writing checks for things that you didn't actually have an expense for. So it's something you really don't want to have to do. I personally do not know of a club that has gone through that, but I've heard people talk about how tough it was to get reinstated once they had lost that status.
Okay, we'll capture that question and see if we can get some. I'll send it to you, and if we can get a little extra information, we'll make that available. Let's see. Lion Dawn asked, do Canadian clubs have to incorporate?
Not that I'm aware of. It probably would not be a bad idea. I mean, just for protection, because incorporation basically is protecting your organization and your members. and it's something that has become more of an issue recently. LCI is starting to try to make us more aware of that, and as a matter of fact, I've heard more about incorporating on the radio lately than I've ever heard, talking about how you protect yourself and your organizations, and they offer free incorporation kits. All you got to do is send in, and they'll send you the information for free, to step-by-step guide in how to do that.
All right, let's see. I'm going to keep going on questions because there's a couple that are coming in, but we're still pretty close. We'll be probably wrapping up just after the hour. This will probably be a two-part question from a couple of items that came in. Oh, shoot, it scrolled out of view. Let's see. The Lion Chris asked, and this goes to the trademark protection, what type of permission, if any, is needed to use the lion's emblem on a T-shirt or hats?
If you're doing the T-shirt and or hat for your club members, and it's only for club members, you don't have to have permission to use it. But if you're going to sell those T-shirts and or hats, then either you have to have it, or the organization or business that is making those for you has to have permission to use it.
What I've noticed is a lot of times the organization or the company will make the connection with LCI to be able to use the logo. Leanne shared that she has permission. So this fits in with what you said. She has permission from LCI to use the logo for embroidery on shirts up to a quantity of 30 without a license. And so she makes her own and makes some for her club members. And I'm not sure if this is a question or a statement about doing that without profit to herself, but just for the cost of materials to the club. And so smaller, limited quantities I think are okay, but that would probably be worth an inquiry to LCI to make sure that you have that. Let's see.
Yeah, once you get into profiting from the selling of those things with that trademark is where you get into trouble.
There's this is a question about going back, I think, to benefits to members, and if there are potential concerns with a club helping a member pay for glasses or contacts.
That's a real sticky one. We've been working on that and disagreeing on that in our state for a couple years now, because not only do we have members who are blind that want to go to activities that they can't afford to go to, but sometimes we have members who need glasses and can't afford them. By the definition, if they're a member, you can't use your activity money. Now, when you're dealing with your admin money, you probably could get by with that, but I would document very, very closely in your records that that money comes from admin and that it was approved by the club and by the board of directors to do that.
Okay, and that sounds like that may be similar to a couple of questions that came in about how to help members who have like medical appointments and have a travel cost, or needing some type of equipment to help them. That your best bet's probably to do that from the administrative account, but that practice it's subject to interpretation. Is that a fair way to say it?
And that's similar to that's like the difference between your Leo club and your campus club. Leo club, you can get by with using your activities money for their annual sponsorship, but you cannot pay the dues for your campus club because they are actually Lions and those are dues, so you can't use that money to pay those dues.
All right, let's see. Lion Bud had a question, and this may be state-specific, but he's asking if a club can conduct bingo at a bingo parlor owned by a member of the club.
you're probably going to have to check with your state, but based on what I went over earlier on gaming, as a 501c4, you're not allowed to. You have to donate those proceeds to a 501c3 based on the rule that I read. But you would want to check with your individual state because it may be different in each state.
I think also, I'm not sure if this is implied from Bud's question or not, but if there's a charge to kind of be the organization that runs the bingo, or kind of like a renting out the parlor, if they're treated like other organizations that would run a bingo, and that if they were the only club, never mind, I'm going to stop because I'm not sure I'm going to confuse the waters any there. Let's see. Lion Legit shared that Canadian clubs will be required to incorporate soon. So I do think, as has been mentioned a couple times, that aspect is changing probably as we speak, and that Canadian Lion should keep up with the news and your governmental requirements as that may be changing. And I'm sure LCI will be communicating to Lions clubs when those changes occur as well, to help you get in compliance if the guidelines or the requirements change. Let's see. There's a question. Lion Roke asked for a clarification of an example of property. For example, it could be like a mobile screening unit that costs several thousands of dollars for the unit to check eyes, whether that be a vehicle or something else that that may come into play. Lion Zane asked, and I think this fits with what you require, or what you mentioned as being fair and reasonable use, printing business cards to hand out to other people, is we have permission to use the logo in that regard. Would you agree?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And I think the last question that came through, and then I will check real quick to see if we have any hands.
Yes.
Okay. If we have any hands raised, was Lion Donnie, who asked, let's see, or mentions that there a club has a member who joined and is also a member of an organization for which the Lions Club held a fundraiser. If they resign as a Lion, can they receive benefits from the activity that was held, or ones that may be held in the future? Is that?
I don't think you could. I don't think they could receive anything from past things, because if they were a Lion when that was held, but future things, I don't think that would be a problem.
Okay.
I think that, once again, I think you're going to have to use your common sense with that, because, and if you're really not sure, then if you have a particular instance that you could call legal and ask them, because they're going to give you what the courts would hold or uphold.
Right. Okay. I do have one hand raised. I'm going to see if Lion Roke, if we didn't capture his question or comment, or if you have a question to ask there, and then we'll proceed. Hello? Okay, in that case, we will move right along. And Lion Gary, thank you for a ton of good information, a few things that I know my club can improve upon in our operations with respect to our finances. So thanks for a lot of good research and experience. I will remind folks that as you complete the criteria for either the bachelor's, master's, or later offering of the doctorate programs, you can go into members.lionsforum.org, and this has changed a bit now. We have our primary fields of interest are going to be the ones that are here bracketed in red, and I hope you can see that on the screen, but it will be, for the purposes of the bachelor's program, the 3 key requirements: that you've completed 10 required courses, 5 elective courses, and attended the forum. And then for the master's program, there are 4 elements that we'll be targeting, and then the doctorate program has 5 elements that we'll be targeting. But we do still have, for those of you that have taken courses to date, we will keep those records within the system. So some of you have asked questions about whether you needed to redo the quizzes or whether you would lose credit. You do not lose credit for the courses you've completed. However, I will say if you want to be able to have the nice visual of your progress on the courses, then I would encourage you to go back and consider a refresher in taking the quizzes for the courses that you've already had. Most of those will take 2 minutes or less to do since you've been with us on the webinars or in the video, and so that is completely up to you. We won't lose the old records, but if you want the one snapshot, which a lot of people, the feedback I'm getting is that that's preferable, but it's completely up to you. So your members area on the forum website will look a little bit different now, but those are the things we'll be tracking to be able to recognize the lines that have completed the program. And we mentioned this a couple of times, and this is where we'll try to follow up with a couple of the questions that we don't have the answers to, and either include links to LCI references or some additional information is on the discussion board, and you can get to that from lionsforum.org, and you can go down and select the club finances topic for that. Our next webinar is next week. That will be on Tuesday, March 10th, and it will be Meaningful Ceremonies. It is an elective for the master's program, but I can tell you I have found this this topic in particular very beneficial at my club level as well. So although it's not a bachelor's program for your club level leadership, I think you'll get a lot of benefit from that. And we do have courses scheduled for every Tuesday in March. So please check out the calendar on lionsuniversity.org. And the quiz is not available right now, but should be available in your members area of lionsuniversity.org within the next couple of minutes, and would thank you for participating with us here this evening. And one more time, thank you, Lion Gary, for all of the information that you have shared with us and taking the time to help us improve our club operations.
You're welcome, and thank you.
So let's see. With that, I will ask you as you are leaving the webinar to go up on your control panel and select the file option and either exit or leave the webinar. And as I mentioned, the course will be ready for you to get credit in just a few moments. Thank you all, and we'll look forward to seeing many of you with us next week.